and welcome. I'm Reverend Nhien, founder of Evolving Enneagram and the author of The Enneagram of the Soul, a 40-day spiritual companion for the 9 types. If you've been seeking a compassion-based, contemplative approach to Enneagram-informed transformation, you are most certainly in the right place. This is where contemplation meets the Enneagram. We are in week 2 of a 12-week Sunday talk series on the theme 9 Points of Light. Last week, I opened by sharing some important aspects of the contemplative Enneagram framework that we apply here at Evolving Enneagram to nurture our inner awakening. If you're new to this channel, first, a heartfelt welcome. I recommend you listen to last week's talk first. It's called An Invitation to Three-Centered Awakening. And if you like it, I hope you'll subscribe to our channel. So today we launch into the body center of the Enneagram, which includes Enneagram types 8, 9, and 1. And today's focus is point 8. So you'll notice that I use the term type sometimes, and I do that when I'm referring to people who identify with a certain number as their core personality type. And I use point to refer to the qualities represented by a particular Enneagram number as those aspects or qualities relate to or live in all of us, whether or not we identify with that Enneagram personality type. So I'll explore point 8 today, touching on type 8 a little bit and drawing from the teachings of Russ Hudson, Hamid Ali, and decades of my own work with the Enneagram, including my book, The Enneagram of the Soul, I will take today in 3 parts. In part 1, we'll explore why our journey of conscious awakening invites a journey through all 9 points of the Enneagram, and rather than just through the examination of our own Enneagram type. In part 2, I'll take a look at power, true strength at point 8, and how the type, the personality, divorced of its essence quality, attempts to mimic this quality. In part 3, I'll guide you through a brief contemplative journey to sense into and thereby awaken this essence quality of true strength in all of us through the journey of egoic surrender. So let us begin. So part 1, why journey through all 9 points on the Enneagram? I'll borrow here from the teachings of Hamid Ali, whose pen name is A.H. Almas. In his book, Keys to the Enneagram, he writes, "The ego self has all 9 fixations, all 9 delusions in its inner core. By exploring each fixation as it appears in our sense of self, we may access its idealized aspect. This means it's possible for us to access 9 idealized qualities, I would call them essence qualities, by studying our fixated ego self, which in turn will make penetrating the inner core of our type much easier since we have many powerful qualities of presence to aid us. It is rare," he writes, "that an individual will access all 9 of the idealized aspects. And I am not saying we need to do this in order to be able to penetrate our inner core. But the more essential qualities we integrate, the easier it is for us to open up the core of our type and access its holy idea. In fact, there is the potential for us to penetrate the cores of all 9 types and access all their holy ideas. In this way, the Enneagram map functions as a powerful tool for spiritual realization and liberation." That's page 23. So this morning, as I sat down for my centering prayer sit, this thought came to me, and I jotted down in my little phone notes right before I sat. Does contemplation help us to transcend existence or to enter it more fully? My answer is yes, meaning it's not an either or proposition. Transcending our human experience, dropping in to this awareness of the infinite as the essence and truth of our being, yes, and because of that awakening and awareness, the capacity, I believe, to live more fully our divine, our true nature, right? So, but living from that so that we are very worldly, but from the spiritual ground of being. And some of you have heard me describe it as the journey from living from personality to living from our individuality, which is living rooted in the knowing that we are one with the divine. We've awakened to that knowing of that truth at the core of our being. So the contemplative path of surrender, which allows us to wake up to our oneness in spirit, is, in my view, a prerequisite to the latter, which is living our divine potential, our true nature, which is about being more fully divine and more fully human now in our present lived experience, not in some sort of afterlife, as if this moment it was only like preparation rather than life itself. And that takes us to part two. Part two, true strength at point 8. So, in the embodied immediacy and aliveness that is characteristic of point 8 on the Enneagram, we really get like the here and the nowness of our lives. We sense into this inner thrust toward vitality, immediacy toward movement and activity, which is really drawing from the invisible, you got an idea, the invisible into the visible, idea right into action, right there, directness. So, but this impulse to exercise a kind of strength or power in the world to impact the world, again, can either come from our knowing of our oneness or from our sense of separateness, from being identified with our personality or being identified with our spiritual nature. And we know, perhaps all too well, the impact of the ego, the part of us that believes we're separate, right? We're not demonizing the ego, we just think it's misguided. So we know all too well the impact of the ego wielding power, power that divides, power over rather than power with and power for. And we see this in unconscious type 8s who are in their fixation, really using this power in a way where it is about us versus them, right? Very dualistically. It's about controlling the other, it's about demonizing the other, right? From this perspective of a strong sense of who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, what's right and what's wrong. And really, kind of in an almost animalistic way, and that there's this urge in fixated eightness to use your strength to squash what you think is bad, right? And also to squash anything that is not strong, which is your own vulnerability. And at the same time, in the 8 that is awakening, expressing power as an individual and needing to be the one in control lessens, it softens, it can begin to fade away. And so when 8s are able to drop inside themselves, bring presence, not just into the body, but into all 3 centers, but starting with the body, and we'll do that guided practice later, they remember in this seat of power, of like authentic power, that they don't need to exert power over, right? In order to have good and justice, goodness and justice be here in the world, right? I've been talking about the word power, and for me, I'm referring to the different kinds of power. But when we talk about this essence quality that emerges, Hamid Ali refers to it as true strength. And in Keys to the Enneagram, he describes it in this way: strength, the fiery energy and presence that we feel, can appear as the life force itself. This is because the life force includes this essential strength, though it also includes energy and dynamic creative aliveness. So when experiencing strength, we're often struck by how alive we feel, as if we are teeming with life, as if aliveness has woken up throughout our body and being. We can feel we are robust life itself. Love that word, robust. So, strength inherently has robustness and vitality, infusing the life force with its potent vibrancy. And Russ Hudson has named this essential quality simply power. And I think of it, just to make a distinction between this external use of power, I think of it as authentic power, true strength, authentic power. We know, we've seen it, that it's the authentically powerful that can admit worldly weakness, right? But if you need to be powerful in the world, then you can't show your weakness, and often not even to yourself. And so we see in type 8s this tendency to not even be conscious of their own vulnerabilities or weakness, such that they can actually be prone to physical or emotional collapse because they weren't even consciously aware, right, of this, what seems like an impossibility, which is like their inner fragility in this regard. And so the weakness takes them by surprise because they can't see it. Very similar to how the two in fixation cannot see their own neediness, the eights can often not see their own vulnerability, right? Be aware of. They think I'm the strong one. Oh, these poor other people, they need more than I do, right? They generally have that view of other people. They need more than I do. And if I am conscious at all of my weakness, the consciousness is to definitely hide it or fix it, right? To become stronger. And some people have even told me that they came into spirituality at first in a way to almost like have a way to be more in control, like to reclaim a sense of power over aspects of their lives where they were feeling powerless. So, true strength, that attitude, when it emerges, that attitude of, I can't be weak, I'm not part of the weak ones, which is, like being part of the human race, right? I don't have such vulnerabilities. That attitude is no longer needed. And so it fades away when true strength is online, right? When we are present to that which is already always within us. But the kicker is that the eight believes that true strength is there because it's so identified with the persona of strength that it's hard to tell the difference. But the difference is true strength is like gifted. It's literally being surrendered to a power greater than yourself. Whereas most eights are like, oh, my power is the great power, but it's surrender to a power, a literal power greater than itself, than yourself, greater than your personal power is another way of saying it, a more universal power. And it's not just type 8. The essence quality of true strength is available to all of us. Now, to be clear, we are not all types, but we have all points of all qualities of being within us as potentiality. And so within our wholeness and our divinity, right? It's a part of us that says, oh, that's not me, that can repress, reject, or even like adjust or use that energy in a poor way. And many of us might reject it because we see the abuse of power or life force in the world, right? Pretty clearly. And how many people, I mean, I was astonished because I definitely have a yay power relationship to power. But when I heard someone was like, ooh, power. And it's almost like because power has been abused, they're like, power is bad. I'm like, oh, power is not bad. It's the misuse of power that is harmful, right? So I would like to invite you now to take a moment. You can pause the video if needed to explore your relationship with power. First, consider your relationship with true strength as described by Almas there. Are you connected to it? Or do you feel like you could use a little bit of that life force and that aliveness and that sense of strength within you? So, how do you relate to that true essence quality? That's the first question. And then, how do you relate to its mimicry, right? With its just like the forcing of that, right? The individual ego's effort to to impose power, to assert itself, right? So a few questions that can maybe help you discern as you possibly pause this if you feel called to. Do you wish you had more assertiveness, boldness? What do you feel you have to give up in order to claim your authentic power, your true strength? Is it like people pleasing? Give up your dignity or the way people think of you, your respect, your sense of respect. Maybe it's your identification with being nice, like a nice or polite person or accommodating person, right? Think about what you have to give up. Maybe even your sense of authentic self, because maybe you identify with your mood right now and you don't feel powerful, then therefore it's not even like really a part of you, right? Conversely, maybe do you often feel a fire in the belly? Do you identify with sometimes being like a bull in a china shop? Are you direct? Do you often act without thinking? Are you often called too much? As a result, do you then charge on, powering your way through that, or do you hold back as a result and squash your own fire? And then I want to ask, when have you attempted to exercise your power to try to control someone else? And that's not necessarily physical control. It could be manipulation, trying to get someone to believe something. And during those times, have you felt more powerful or more powerless? Something to ponder. When the personality is in charge of power, it can be a bit of a mess, right? I think about our Facebook status in terms of our relationship to power might be, it's complicated. Because now you're hearing about all these things, and the ego wants to take control and say, oh my God, I have to figure this out. How am I going to use power now? Oh, when am I abusing power? Like from the ego's point of view, it's very complicated. But the journey of contemplation invites that we trust that this surrender to the innate quality, this essential quality of power as true strength within us, that this vitality and aliveness coming online is naturally good. It's beneficent. It's magnificent. And it is literally vital. It's like vitality. This vitality is vital. You can quote me on that. This vitality is vital. So, I mean, just imagine a world in which you doing repressed folks like the 459, not picking on you, just saying if you claim this vitality within you, right? But of course, this is really for everyone, because even for eights, we're talking about something different from the power in ordinary consciousness that you wield. What would happen to the world if we opened up to authentic power? If even a fraction of us opened to this authentic spiritual power, right? So I certainly can't predict what would happen, but my faith tells me that this is good. And in centering prayer, which is a core practice here at Evolving Enneagram, and I can send links in the caption for those who need to learn more about it, it is the core practice we use to surrender the egoic sense of self. And so that's why will continually emphasize this. It's the muscle of surrender, and recognize if these things are innate in us, we don't have to work toward them, but there's an invitation to surrender the barriers to them. I definitely believe that if enough of us awaken to true strength or power, then the way power is exercised in the entire world will begin to change. We already see this in the model of the high side of eight. We see this in their radiance. In the eights who have learned that when they surrender control within consciousness, they awaken more fully to their own innocence and their own preciousness. And so I'll share the description for eights from my own book, The Enneagram of the Soul, and this is pages 25 through 26 for those who are following along. As eights begin to wake up, they increasingly connect to a more innocent, childlike view of the world as undifferentiated oneness. They no longer have to separate themselves from a hurtful world. Their hearts soften and they engage life with greater vulnerability, gentleness, open heartedness, mercifulness, forbearance, and benevolence. Always a helper and often a protector. Their way of giving shifts from powerfully doing for others to sharing more and more heartfelt space with others. Soulful eights use their ready, abundant life force for the greater good. Centered in their wholeness, eights develop a capacity to slow down, to make more space for others to step in, to help, and even to lead. No longer led by the need for bigger or more, they become more self disciplined and self regulating, which enables them to burn fewer bridges, achieve longer term visions, and become even more authentically powerful and heroic. Russ Hudson has taught that at the high side, people who are eights are willing to do the hard job, what is unpopular but necessary, and people just naturally look to them for decisions. And he goes on to say in his audiobook, The Enneagram, Nine Gateways to Presence, real power is inseparable from love. Mm. So in Keys to the Enneagram, Hamid Ali lets us know that the ego ideal imitates the essential quality. We try to be someone who embodies this quality, but we don't know the quality of presence directly and consciously. In my view, part of opening to this quality of presence directly is through contemplative practice, and more specifically, through surrender. I believe this because surrender changes the seat of identity. And so, with that, let us move into part 3. Okay, part 3, a contemplative journey, surrendering to true strength for all types. So, surrender again is not so much an outer activity, but an inner attitude. At the same time, surrendering some things from the outer world, some things that the personality clamors for or clings to can help this inner attitude of surrender. At least that's what I've seen. So let's go around the entire Enneagram. Surrendering to true strength may mean that to start at least, you at point 8 for type 8s, surrender controlling your environment. Surrender your armor. For type 9s, surrender distractions. And also, surrender your despair, which is really at the root of why you're like, it doesn't matter. Type 1, surrender rigidity. And relatedly, surrender your fear of being uncontained. Because you think by staying here and proper and in the rules, you will do more good and won't do bad, especially with power. And so, but allowing for this and trusting this authentic expression of power allows you the wildness of it and the spontaneity of it to express. Moving into the heart types. Type 2, surrender persuading in the outer world. Surrender your woe is me, because that keeps you in a victim mode, keeps you looking outward where you'll never find your own true strength. For the 3, surrender accomplishing. Surrender your dignity. This doesn't mean that you're never going to accomplish things ever again. That doesn't mean that you won't have respect or be respected. But the requirement that that be true, that that be so, can keep you from unleashing, can keep your true power censored, right? Because you think it gets in the way of your succeeding in whatever your goal is. For the 4, surrender fantasizing. And relatedly, surrender your dreams of being saved, waiting for that proverbial knight in shining armor, and realizing that you have the power within you to not only save yourself, but live your life fully and express your gifts of like immense creativity in the world. For the 5, now we're in head types, surrender collecting information. Surrender your isolating. These are ways you open to taking action with your power in a relational field that is known as life in the world, right? For the 6, surrender self-doubting, that equivocating, that back and forth, that questioning that keeps you stuck, analysis paralysis. Surrender your need for predictability. You can't safeguard against all potential consequences. When you, again, release that and trust this power, not directed or governed or figured out by the ego, but something sourced from the spirit, from this body of wisdom and truth within you. This, to trust this essential and spiritual quality, to offer positive outcomes in the world, right? For the 7, surrender your escape routes, right? I want to say that I actually mean primarily your mental escape routes. And so that the dropping into presence doesn't happen because there's this great entertaining idea, it's like there's a leaving. And relatedly, surrender your, I don't know if I can say this to you, surrender your need for independence. And just like, with all the other types, I'm not saying that, you don't get to have some independence, but to the extent your need to have freedom keeps you from contemplative surrender, keeps you too active, too occupied, too self-assertive. It's almost like, if you think about it, independence is the opposite of oneness. It's like, yep, doing my own thing over here. Oh, well, oneness is over there. Yeah, that's full of power and full of good, but I'll stay over here, right? So you just think of it as, oh, there's something even more powerful, and there's like a true freedom. We'll learn when we talk about the 7s. But so that's the invitation to consider. I'm sure you can think of many things that you might need to surrender, including beliefs and ideas around power, to help you give yourself permission to claim your own power. Yeah. And so, together, let us surrender these egoic agendas. And again, whatever you're doing, that's so important. Maybe for these next few minutes, I invite you to stop what you're doing if you can, or set this aside for later, but really set some time aside to drop in. This is just a few minutes long. So this contemplative journey begins with the breath. And so I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and if it's safe to do so where you are right now. And then follow your breath. And then I invite you to breathe into your belly. You might even place a hand down on your belly. Just notice the sensations there. And notice how sensation has an immediacy to it. Right here and right now, you might experience warmth or the physical sense of contraction and expansion. Feel the powerful support system that is your energetic body. Breathing through the belly center can not only bring the sense of like immediacy, but like a confidence. And when you're in contact with this, there's like a realness, an aliveness, a natural sense of empowerment. Continuing to breathe into your belly center there. You might begin to experience that with this more grounded presence in the body, the heart opens. There's a little more space for it. You might even feel a sense of softness and gentleness in the heart, like being touched. So when the body center, and especially body types 891, when that area is contracted, they want to impact the world without being impacted by it. But here with presence, and now I'm noticing my hand automatically went from one hand on the belly to one hand on the heart. Here with presence, you can experience a more subtle, sensitive aliveness and recognize to be alive, to have vitality, is to be affected by life and the robustness of life force. And heck, for eights, why not? If we're going to be here, why not all the way? Without presence, the world seems more dead. Russ Hudson calls the fixation of the eight objectification, that the eight sees the world as objects. But when we are present and open, and the body gives power and space to the heart, then something opens. This opening can feel like childlike wonder and innocence. There's a tenderness and gentleness. And remember again from Russ this teaching that true power includes love. And as the body and the heart are online in this way, we might notice in the head center, something starts to open. And the holy truth at point 8 emerges. And holy truth is non-duality. But it's like seeing, not based on old conditioning, but what's right now, which is not unlike childlike wonder. Imagine we're not seeing based on conditioning, but we see the truth with wondrous eyes as it is right now. And so we awaken more fully to the way that authentic strength aliveness, vitality can live in us, in this awakened perspective in all three centers. As we bring this talk to a close, I'm reminded of the work of Gary Zukav, who talked a lot about external versus authentic power. And he writes, the pain of powerlessness is excruciating. It is the most painful experience in the Earth School, and everyone shares it. So in our egoic sense of powerlessness, we might relate to power in very unskillful ways. But what happens when we open to the essential quality of true strength within us? Well, Gary Zukav also writes, a new understanding of power is replacing our old understanding of power as the ability to manipulate and control. The old understanding of power has become counterproductive to our evolution. What does this new understanding look like? I don't know. I don't know how it will be realized, but I believe that you do. Or maybe better said is that it does, if we will allow it, if we will stop repressing it, if we will bring presence to it rather than be occupied with our egoic agendas. Imagine the unleashing of authentic power in our world. Thank you. So I will see you next week for point 9 on the Enneagram. If this has supported your journey, I invite you to share the video with friends or family, or if you're called to it, please make a contribution using PayPal to support this work being available to all who need it, irrespective of their ability to pay. See you next week.